Thankfully, the latest report on sumo reform not only concerns itself with foreigner bashing. Let's now go over the remainder and look at the proposals. I'll add some of my proposals and finish by asking you for yours. Firstly, the writers believe that the stable system can retain the support of the public so long as it continues to develop fine sumo personnel, and they therefore recommend it stays. However, they seem to hint that recent scandals have made them question whether the best coaching is really being delivered. The writers therefore call for stronger enforcement of compliance with the association's sumo stable rules, and some accompanying rewards and punishments. What they seem to forget, though, is the nature of many recent scandals, which prove that no amount of enforcement can legislate for stupidity. These men well knew the rules and potential punishments, but still took the crazy risks. For me, the only way to hammer home the consequences of taking those risks, of non-compliance, is a formal written contract. And to their credit, the writers note that things would be much easier if stables had such written contracts with wrestlers. They also note, in the wake of the Shikihide stable scandal last August, the anomaly of stablemaster's wives, hugely influential but not contracted to the association, unbound by its rules and therefore unpunishable. But the report itself stops short of recommending these contracts. So what do you think? Is it time for formal sumo contracts? Another thing the writers request is for the personnel development roles of association, stable, and stable group, or ichimon, to be properly separated and clarified. Honestly though, I don't see how this works when all three institutions are populated by the same people. If the leaders of sumo are not stable masters, demarcation can be achieved. Otherwise, crossover is a given. So what do you think? Should senior sumo directors resign from stablemaster duties to concentrate solely on managing and leading? Or should sumo's top brass consist of outsiders with no connections to stables? On stable groups too, the writers justly call for an explanation of their raison d'etre. In the past it was clear. Each group's wrestlers were forbidden to fight each other in tournaments, so the groups were basically rivals, on the dohyo and in recruiting. Now, those battles are fought by the stables, whose individual identities are stronger. I'm convinced the ichimon have several useful functions, not least in allowing bigger stables to help smaller ones, and even in getting fledgling stables off the ground. But do you think these groups should stay? Sumo coaching qualifications is another thing this report calls for. These qualifications are supposed to be in the design phase now, as a response to the 2018 report on reducing violence. But progress has not been as wished. I certainly think more could be made of all these expert seminars given to coaches and wrestlers, which are never followed up. They could very much form the backbone of a sumo coaching qualification program, with wrestlers and coaches actually tested on what they're supposed to have learned. Remember Takano Fuji's comment on the day he quit. "I punched the guy because they never taught us any other way to get our point across." Sports psychologists, behavioral therapists, security guards specialized in conflict de-escalation. Why not get all these people in and make a proper coaching program? The technical sumo aspects of which can be devised by current and retired wrestlers. What do you think? The report also suggests that a female director should be appointed. I think I know of a few candidates. And that the sumo clinic should play the lead role in wrestler healthcare and treatment. At present, it's left up to the individual stables. I don't really see how we can disagree. The writers also note something interesting about university wrestlers, that many of them are taught not to rise in unison with their amateur foes to gain an advantage at the tachiai. In pro sumo, of course, the idea of the perfect aesthetic tachiai is of two men rising in tandem, harmonizing with your opponent, putting human development above winning for winning's sake. I know the internet is divided on this, so what do you think? The report also notes the significant drop in new recruit numbers over the past 20 years, and highlights the need for stables to put parents of would-be recruits at ease, by stressing support for the child's education and the job opportunities after sumo created by stable connections. It also calls for more injury prevention measures to be taken and a drive to combat weight-related injuries. However, it makes no reference at all to the Hibiki-ryu incident just last month, and as such misses the chance to promote simple but effective measures. As an eyewitness that day, I believe it should never take 2 minutes to find a stretcher and 4 to find a doctor. Both must be stationed at ringside. And if the stretcher should be hidden for aesthetic reasons, it can be buried under a spare floor cushion or simply carried by a spare yobidashi in the wings, while the doctor can simply sit among the judges. How about it? On the sumo school, I think the report stops short of where it should. It says the curriculum should be tailored to reflect the different ages of the students, ranging from 15 to 23. However, connected with the previous point, I think the school needs to expand, to become a real high school, and that everybody joining should be the same age, 15. My proposal: take an abandoned local school building crying out for life like this one, fill it with regular qualified teachers and aspirant teenage wrestlers from all backgrounds, and let these wrestlers study for their regular high school qualifications. These boys can still live in the stables and serve senior wrestlers, and train moderately at those stables, but do most of their training with each other at the school. And for these 3 years, they grow stronger together, and their only competitive bouts are against each other, in exclusive sumo school tournaments, which could include team contests between ichimon. And when they're graduated at 18 and more ready to fight adults, then they turn pro. I think it's time for sumo to be bolder and say to kids, if you really want to turn pro, we want you in here at 15. Like Hakuho, like Haruma-Fuji, like Kisenosato. And it's time to face the facts that schools like Saitama Sakae and Johoku, who cream off the best talent to create high school sumo elites, often for large sums of money, do not really embody sporting integrity or national sport values. National sport means open to all. Education shouldn't buy you success. Sumo's supposed to be the great social leveler, the best chance in Japan for a poor kid to keep pace with his more privileged friends on the social ladder. A new expanded sumo school will take on the top talent, of course, but alongside anyone else who wants to join, for free, allowing weak to learn from strong, and strong to work with weak and learn how to lead. How about it? Finally, I'd like to reform wrestler salary structure. Perhaps you remember this match from the final day in January. Look at Yago, too scared even to attempt a technique, frozen with the fear of losing his salaried status to his opponent. He ends up winning, and the crowd feel cheated, because Tochimaru made all the running, showed all the heart, but got no reward against negative defensive sumo. An awful lot of Division 2 sumo is unwatchable for this very reason. Wrestlers being too scared to lose salary and status, and more inclined to either fight dirty, park the bus, or seek allies over enemies. And yes, that does mean tanking. Sumo operates on the premise that if the status gap between Divisions 2 and 3 were smaller, lower division men would try less hard. But that's not what we see in our everyday lives. I don't think there's a person among us who requires a promise of a 1000% pay rise and infinite increase in status to try harder. Which is why I feel a more graduated sumo salary scale, based on, say, 30% increases between all divisions, plus a bit more prize money here and there, would give wrestlers all the motivation they need to improve. And crucially, the Division 2 struggler of today can be reassured that defeat doesn't entail losing all. A return to some servant duties maybe, but not nigh total loss of salary. Give Division 2 men the mental freedom to properly fight, is my proposal. So what do you think? That's about all the reform talk Sumo will give us for now. So, feel free to add your thoughts on anything we haven't covered. What new reforms would you like to see?